Get kicked off. Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's conversation, Mastering Search Intent, Advanced SEO Strategies for Competitive Markets. My name is Daniel Anzueto. I welcome all pronouns, and I serve as a Community Engagement Manager at Startup. I'm excited to welcome you to today's event. If this is your first time attending one of our workshops, welcome, and know that the Startout's mission is to increase opportunity and success for LGBTQ entrepreneurs. I'm grateful to introduce and welcome back our host for today's session, Ryan from Rex Marketing and CX. The floor is yours, Ryan.
Cool. Thanks so much, Danny. Thanks everyone for coming. Today we'll be talking about search intent. And if you're not familiar with that, we're going to kind of dive in from the beginning of what it means and going into strategies of how to implement and how to incorporate into your own SEO strategy. But first, just brief introduction of myself. So as Danny said, my name is Ryan. I'm the co-founder of Rex Marketing CX. I'm based here in Austin. I'm a two-time founder. I originally was the founder of an ed tech company, exited in 2021, focused in the areas of growth marketing, SEO, have come from like the healthcare space, mental health care, education space. So that's really where my expertise lies in those industries, and have been in a number of companies to help companies with growth marketing, SEO, paid, a number of areas. But just about a little bit about what we do at Rex Marketing. So we work with early stage companies and startups, mainly in the consumer healthcare space, but we do work with other industries as well, depending on what your needs are, and we can kind of have a conversation and go from there. But we focus in the areas of SEO, content marketing, content strategy, design and development, and just overall growth marketing and operations. And really, we can work with budgets as low as $300, depending on what we're doing. But really, we focus on early stage businesses who are trying to be scrappy, trying to get their product and their service off the ground, and helping them implement early stage growth strategies. That's a little bit about me and what we do at Rex Marketing. But jumping into the material that we'll be talking about today, which is why you're here, is first understanding what do I mean when I talk about search intent as it relates to SEO. We'll talk about the types of search intent mapping, identifying competitor gaps when it comes to intent, using intent first SEO strategy, some advanced tactics looking at incorporating AI and how to leverage it to help your content strategy, and then going to address finally some common mistakes to look at and to keep in mind as you're thinking about this. But first, understanding search intent and what it is. So search intent is, as it says, getting to the intent of what a searcher is doing when they go to a search engine like Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo. Um, at the end of the day, Google's in the business of not just ranking content, but ranking relevance of content. So Google wants, when someone comes to and does a search in a search engine, and I'm going to say Google because Google is the main player in the search engine space. When someone goes to Google something, they're going with an intent to buy something, learn about something, gather more information, and Google is going to prioritize content that fits the intent of the searcher. So it's not just about creating content that ranks, it's about creating content that is relevant to a user's search intent. Um, if you're not considering intent when you're thinking about your content strategy, your keyword strategy, you're really missing out when it comes to thinking about your content as a funnel for your business. Because if you're just creating content that you think is trendy or that you think is going to rank, but you're not thinking about the intent of why someone's going to come to that piece or come to your website overall, it's kind of just like traffic that doesn't mean anything. It's traffic that's not going to generate a call, generate a demo, generate, whatever the CTA is for your business, unless you're considering that intent as part of your content strategy and when you're creating content, whether it be blogs, video, etc. So why it matters. So Google's mission is creating relevance at scale. So again, they're all about showing people the correct content, the right content based off of their search query, which ties into the intent that they have when they come to it. Especially with recent updates when it comes to Google, it's built to understand why someone is searching and not just what they typed into that search bar. If it doesn't meet user expectations, it'll get deprioritized. If you're familiar with bounce rate, which I assume if you're here today, you probably are familiar to an extent with bounce rate. But you may not be aware that bounce rate does impact your SEO performance. And so bounce rate is basically if someone comes to your page and they navigate away quickly, or they, bounce off the page as soon as they get there, that's going to signal to Google that your page isn't meeting the expectations of what the searcher had intended to find or learn about, or to find in their search, which is going to cause that to be deprioritized for that specific search. So again, it's important to think about the intent. You don't just want someone to land on your page just because it ranks for a keyword if it's not actually a good user experience and meeting the intent of what they're looking to accomplish or learn about as part of their search. Um, Again, as I just said, it's not just about attracting traffic, it's about attracting the right traffic. Um, you know, if you are a SaaS product and you have a blog that's blowing up and you're generating a bunch of traffic, but it's not relevant, it's most likely that the traffic is great to have to the site, but it's not making an impact on your business. It's not leading to more sales, it's not leading to more demos, especially if it's not content that is intent driven or relates to why someone would want to use your product. And that's just one example. But that's the importance of considering intent when it comes to your content strategy. Pages that align with the intent will have longer dwell times, which the opposite of bounce rate, or I should say like the other side of bounce rate is dwell time, which is how long someone spends on the page. And that again is a signal to Google to prioritize a page if someone's engaging with it, if users who go to the page are actually interacting with it. So that's really the goal of this is reducing bounce rates, increasing dwell times, and increasing engagement by focusing on intent-driven content so that you're not only improving your ability to rank by signaling to Google that this content is high quality and relevant, but also if you're thinking about your content as a funnel, really thinking about how does this intent-driven piece ultimately drive more people to take the action I want, whether it be, again, book a demo, buy a product, so on and so forth. So that's just generally speaking what search intent is and why it's important. But now we're going to look at the types of search intent. So there are 4 types of intent. There is navigational, informational, transactional, and commercial or investigational. So starting first, navigational is branded queries. So this would be if someone's like going to log into your page. Like if someone's going to go to SEMrush login or um, Indeed login, or whatever the product is, or they're searching for that product like by name. That's a branded query that's navigational. Obviously, these are ones that you already hopefully are ranking for. If you have a product and you have a reputable brand, you should be ranking highly or at the top for all of your branded queries, but that's a navigational intent. Informational intent would be someone, excuse me, who is looking to, as it says, gather more information around a specific topic, product, etc. So for example, these could be blogs, guides, definitions, or like dictionaries that you have on your website. A very simple one is like how to brew coffee. Someone's going to come through and looking for informational content to learn how to do something, to learn more about that topic. Transactional intent. So as it says, this is someone who's looking to make a purchase or engage with a product. So these could be reviews, comparison guides. So, for example, buy running shoes online. This is a very simple one, but that's someone who's going through and they're actively looking to make a transaction or consider making a transaction to buy a product or engage with a product. And this is just one example of buying running shoes online. But really think about long tail keywords. So you could say buy men's running shoes online, buy children's running shoes online. There's a lot of opportunity here, but that's just one example of like starting at the beginning of of how someone would conduct that search in Google. So again, two types of content that would be relevant for this type of search intent would be review pages, comparison guides to other products or competitor products, things like that. And then commercial or investigational. So these are a good example of these are like product guides or like the top 10 guides. So if someone's looking to, maybe they're not in the process of buying currently, but they are wanting to compare and understand uh what are the different options out there because I'm currently shopping around for a product or a solution. So an example of this would be best trail running shoes 2025. And I'm sure we've all seen these types of pieces of content of like top 10 gift guides or, top 10 AI products or whatever the case may be. But some examples of these would be product guides. Um, like if you were to create a list on your website or a piece of content that top lists out your product alongside 9 other products and explains how you're the best product. These are just some ideas when it comes to these types of this type of content for this type of intent. So how intent relates to your funnel. So kind of spoke about this as I was explaining them, but navigational, these are generally your current customers or traffic near bottom of funnel. So these could be people, like think about it, whenever you're thinking about intent, put yourself in the shoes of the searcher. So if someone's searching for your brand by name, they are either already know your brand and they already are engaged with you. Maybe they had a sales call and now they're going to the website to do some further analysis or understanding of the product to make a decision. But these people are already bottom of funnel. They are near the bottom of funnel. They know you, they know your brand. They may actually already be a customer. When it comes to informational, this is like very top of funnel. These are people who are looking to educate themselves with content. They're looking to learn more about your something related to your product or service or tangential item that's related to your product or service. So these are very top of funnel. I would say these are still, even though it is very top of funnel with informational content, these still are important because this can actually help with like newsletter building, getting someone to engage with your content if it's high quality, whether it be like signing up for, like I said, your monthly newsletter, them coming back to your website to learn more about that information. Um, so again, these are still important as part of the funnel, but they are more top of it. When it comes to transactional, these are bottom of funnel. These are people who are looking to make a decision and take an action. They're looking to buy, they're looking to make a purchase, looking to book a demo. Again, these are bottom. And then commercial investigational, these are more mid-funnel. They're researching, they're comparing, they're not committing to a product at this moment in time, but they're currently evaluating. They're evaluating the top products for X. They're looking for the top software for Y, whatever the case may be. But again, they're in that decision-making process, but they haven't decided they're going to make a purchase today or in the near future necessarily, but they're evaluating. So that's just what the 4 different types of intent are and how it relates to the funnel. When it comes to intent mapping, and when you're conducting keyword research for your content, it's important to map your content, or sorry, map your keywords to the intent that they have. This is going to help inform what type of content you produce for each. And I kind of talked about types of content that could fit into an intent. But for example, I have just some basic ones here. So for what is schema markup? First off, schema markups, if you're not familiar with schema markup, it relates to SEO. But that's another topic we're not going to dive into. But schema markup, someone's looking to get some informational content. They're maybe trying to implement this on their website. They have questions around it. The type of content that would be helpful for somebody would be a blog post, for example, that breaks down what is schema markup and explains it. Or if you have a glossary of terms, maybe if you're for example, with this keyword, maybe you're an SEO based product, like that's what you're offering. Maybe you have a glossary of important terms for someone, and you explain what is schema markup in that. But that's an example of content that would fit the informational intent. An example of commercial would be best SEO tools. So this is someone who is in the evaluation process, but they're not looking to make a purchase. This again would be like a comparison guide. Maybe you would create a piece of content that explains your tool compared to others. or explains the top 10 and, explains why yours is the best. But that would be more of a commercial intent. So again, it's important to, as you're doing your keyword research for content, making sure you understand what is the intent of the search. And then finally, like this one's very straightforward, buy SEO software. Like if someone's actually searching that, this is just an example, but it could be like buy a t-shirt for mom, buy t-shirt for Mother's Day, or whatever the case may be. This is transactional intent, and this should be really going to a product page, pricing page, etc. For this type of search. So when it comes to identifying intent, if you're using an SEO tool, which this is more of an advanced session, so I'm hopefully if you're attending this session, you have taken the time to invest in some sort of toolkit for your SEO strategy. If not, I highly recommend it. There's a number of softwares out there like Ahrefs, SEMrush, Surfer SEO, Screaming Frog, Google Search Console is like if you're not using that already, you need to be implementing that like tomorrow or after this call. But these tools will help you identify as part of their product suite intent whenever you're conducting keyword research. Obviously, too, if you haven't invested in one of these softwares, which again, highly recommend it, you can also again put yourself in the shoes of the searcher and map intent properly based off of what the keyword is. You can also use Google itself. So one thing that people often overlook is when you go into Google and you're typing in a search query, it's going to give you a recommended completion for the search query. So that can be helpful when you're conducting keyword research and kind of understanding what's popular intent for searches. But then also, once you do the search itself, look at the top 3 results and understand what is currently ranking. What intent is currently showing up? What are the types of pieces, like pieces of content that are showing up in those top 3 search results? Another section that's helpful, like directly within the Google search, is people also ask section. That's where it's going to have that drop down potentially, or at the bottom of the page where it's going to show what other people have searched for. That can be helpful not only for understanding intent, but also looking at other keyword opportunities and other pieces of other opportunities for content or pieces based off of what's popular for people to search for. And then obviously leverage AI to help. I'm going to talk about AI later in the presentation, but AI can be a really helpful tool to help like speed up your strategy, help you understand what people might be searching for as well, build up a list of potential questions for content ideas. The list goes on and on of what it can help you with, but I always recommend it to be using it to help speed up your process and your strategy implementation. So looking at competitor gaps when it comes to intent. So this is like, if you can find an intent gap, this is like golden. If you're looking at your competitors' content, because that introduces an opportunity to rank. You can run content gap reports in Ahrefs or SEMrush. Again, that's why I would recommend investing in one of these tools because it's going to really help speed up the process and get this type of analysis and these types of find these types of opportunities. But finding these intent gaps is like what you're aiming for when it comes to creating a piece of high quality content. If you can create content, you need to create content to outrank your competitor. So show your version that could better meet the need and intent of searchers. So for example, also too, not thinking about just gaps, but if you do a search with say transactional intent or informational intent or what have you, and your competitor has a piece that's showing that doesn't fully meet the intent of what the search is, this could be an opportunity for you to create a competing piece to better fit that piece of that search query, and again bump up in rankings potentially to ultimately outrank them if that content is not meeting the intent of the searcher. And then also to use analytics tools to understand competitor performance. So, for example, if like pages with a low click-through rate despite high rankings, um, again, looking at intent opportunities. So, like if someone like if you see that a competitor is ranking for a piece of content that is like not fitting the search query or not fitting the intent, that's a obviously going to be a great opportunity to create a piece of content because they're going to have a high bounce rate, etc. Or they're not going, and they might just be ranking because they have a high domain authority. So it's important to think about these things as you're analyzing competitor opportunities. And now looking at intent first SEO strategy. So when it comes to uh, strategy, the one thing I also recommend doing is search intent layering. So finding opportunities to say you have your core query, so your core search, finding opportunities to support that with additional content. Um, Google is prioritizing, especially with the launch of their new AI component with Gemini into Google Search. They're prioritizing content that tackles a search from all angles. So I always recommend trying to be as thorough as possible whenever you're trying to rank a piece by covering a topic from all angles that someone could be searching for. This can turn one keyword query into a cluster of new ranking opportunities, especially if you're fleshing that content out and hitting it from multiple angles. So I have an example here to kind of uh, explain like what this could look like for a piece. So take the example, best CRM for nonprofits. Primary intent would be commercial. So they're looking to compare tools. They're looking to compare CRMs for their industry or their sector. Some layered support pages that can be incorporated into that. So say that's the main content, that's the main heading, best CRM for nonprofits. You could explain what is a CRM. You could explain nonprofit CRM feature comparison. You could, if you're Salesforce, for example, Salesforce nonprofit pricing guide, or your product X nonprofit pricing guide, um, and schedule a demo for uh, Salesforce, schedule a demo for HubSpot, whatever the case may be. But these are all opportunities for other layers of content opportunities that you can either incorporate into that piece or create new pieces of content to accompany that if you're creating a piece, best CRM for nonprofits. Um, so again, if you find one opportunity for content, for a piece of content, you likely have found at least four or five, and you can cluster that content to layer and layer the search intent to cover it from all angles. And it's important. I've mentioned already the importance of bounce rate, um, dwell times, etc. That being said, it's important to not overlook the UX or the user experience of your website and content. Um, you want to make sure that you're matching content design to the intent of the searcher. So, for example, and I just have like some brief guides for the different types of intent here. Informational content. This would be like, as I mentioned, like a blog, for example. You want to make sure it's obviously mobile responsive, uh, uh, clean UX, minimal CTAs throughout it. Again, this is someone who's gathering information, maybe some CTAs to capture someone to your newsletter, for example, but someone's just looking to gather information. They're not looking to make a purchase currently. Um, when it comes to uh, like a commercial intent, people are gonna be looking for like side by side comparisons. So thinking about the UX and the content design, what's easy for someone to see? Is it a table? It could be, depending on what the screen size is. Is it a table that shows feature set breakdowns? Is it a table accompanied by additional pieces of paragraphs that explain the and breaks down the feature comparison further? Um, these are just kind of like thinking about, again, when someone is conducting that search with the intent of comparing products, for example, when they get to that piece of content, what's going to be the easiest for them to digest? Is it a table format, um, which it's going to be? It's not going to be just a long form of text because they're not going to be able to see that side by side comparison. Um, And when it comes to transactional content, so having clear CTAs, incorporating testimonials, FAQs, I would like to say when it comes to like transactional pages, so whether this be like product pages, pricing pages, like book demo pages, you want to make sure the CTAs are clear. You want to have the social proof. And if you aren't familiar with that term, social proof is like testimonials, logos you've worked with, certifications, licenses you have, etc. All of that front and center to help someone feel confident in their decision of engaging with that CTA. And then also too, it's important to incorporate FAQs. This is often overlooked on these pages. I always think like if someone's coming to this page to purchase a product, to book a demo, whatever the case may be, whatever that CTA is, I want all of their questions to be able to be answered on that page. So if they have questions about, you know, how does your seat pricing work? Like, do I get 5 seats with your software subscription? Do I get 3? What is it? How much do I pay for extra? If you're selling like a product, what is your shipping times? What can I expect in terms of fit, for example? But incorporating these types of FAQs on these product pages or these transactional pages is going to be important so that someone doesn't navigate away from the page and they stay on the page and engage with your CTA, like I said, purchasing the product, booking a demo, whatever the case may be. And I mentioned these previously, but key UX signals to measure and to monitor when it comes to the analytics of your website are dwell time, so how long someone is spending on the page, bounce rate, which is someone bouncing from the page when they get there. So again, that's not what they expected to see. It's not digestible. It's not a good UX experience. Whatever the case may be, they bounce from your page. And then scroll depth, which relates to, again, similar to dwell time, but uh, how much are they engaging with the page? Are they, for example, scrolling through the whole page? Are they actually visiting other pages too? Like understanding like how they're engaging with the page, like if they're reading it thoroughly, are they going to other pieces of content you have, other pages on your website? These are all key UX signals to measure and monitor to ensure that your content is meeting the needs from a UX perspective. Um, so when it comes to uh, content format versus content type, so again, this is like a little like splitting hairs here, but content comes in different types of shapes, different formats, and it can be changed to fit your brand. So, for example, when we speak about informational, this could be, and this obviously can change depending on what type of content your brand creates. Um, Content format of the content could be a listicle, it could be a how-to guide, it could be a Q&A, like a video Q&A, it could be an explainer video, but the type of content like could be it could be a blog post, it could be a video, it could be a podcast. So, I've mentioned blogs throughout because that's pretty common here, but just wanted to highlight here that it could be other forms. It could be a video, it could be a podcast, um, for example. And looking at like navigational intent, people are wanting to see like a brand overview, contact info. Again, navigational would be someone going to your brand name. They're looking to log in. They're looking to see your brand specifically. Obviously, this is going to be like your home page, your about page, your login page, um, your map listing page if you have a like physical location or a brick and mortar location. Um, those are just some examples of type of content for that. When it comes to commercial, we're looking at comparison guides, buyer guides. Um, this could be text-based. This could be a text-based blog where you're doing a table with a comparison chart. Could be a video where you or your content team is explaining um, this is how my product ranks up to X, or this is just how all these products rank up with their feature sets. Um, when it comes to transactional, looking at feature tables, testimonials, um, wanting to include those on these pages. So for example, if someone's going to a transactional page to buy your product, you want to have that feature breakdown. You want to explain what are the things they can expect with your software or your product, including social proof, so those testimonials, social logos you work with, other brands that engage with your product, etc. And these would be the type of content would be like on a product page, a landing page, etc. And then finally, I wanted to include here like a post-purchase intent. So I haven't talked about this, but I wanted to include it here. So a post-purchase intent could be like, for example, if someone's looking to explain, like maybe they already purchased your product, but they don't understand how to use it, or they're having an issue. Um, this might be a tutorial video. This could be like a troubleshooting page, an FAQ page, the type of content um, that would house this would be like your help center, YouTube, PDF guides maybe that you've created to help with understand your product. But um, but yeah, these are just some examples, and I hope this makes sense of understanding like the format of your content doesn't always equal the type of content you're going to create. Like you can have a listicle blog post, you can have a how-to video, a how-to blog post. The format of the content can change based off of the type of content you're creating. Now looking at some advanced tactics when it comes to search intent as it relates to SEO. So first, as I mentioned earlier, we can't not talk about this without mentioning AI. And truthfully, I think you should be using AI to help, especially if you're a small, scrappy team, so that you can move faster and move more effectively when it comes to strategy. But you can leverage AI for a number of tasks when it comes to this. You could use it for simulating searcher mindset. So if you have a search term, you could ask ChatGPT, um, what might a searcher also be looking for if they search for X, for example. But it can help you kind of build out that list of ideas and really help with the ideation phase of things. You can also ask ChatGPT to help you with looking at missing subtopics. So, for example, like if you have a topic already that you want to create content around, you can use ChatGPT to find other topics that are related or what other questions someone might be searching for as it relates to that topic. Um, you can also use it to draft intent match outlines. I like to say outlines because I'm a strong component against using it to just write a piece of content. I mean, I like to tell everyone now that a consumer is sophisticated enough to be able to tell what is uh, AI generated versus what is written by a human. So I like to say use AI or ChatGPT specifically to help with the outlines or to expand content you've already started to write, but you shouldn't just use it to create your copy from scratch. Um, it's not going to fit beyond tone, it's not going to fit brand. And at the end of the day, consumers are becoming more sophisticated in understanding what is AI generated and what's not. Um, I also recommend it, you can help use it to rewrite content, or I like to say, versus just posting a whole piece of content into ChatGPT and asking it to rewrite it for a transactional uh, intent level. I always like to start with like smaller chunks. So maybe it be a couple paragraphs or what have you, and then edit accordingly to make it fit tone and brand. In my experience, if I was to put a whole piece into it, it's gonna again come off very AI generated, not fit brand, not fit tone. Um, you can ask it if you already have a piece of content that's been written by a human, you can ask it to match the style of the content that you've provided. And it does a pretty good job at doing that. However, I still like to go through and it's never going to be just a copy and paste job from there. I'm going to take the content, I'm going to edit it for tone, style, etc. But again, this could be a faster way of creating multiple pieces of content for different types of intent. And then finally, SERP style formatting. Um, so SERPs are opportunity, or when in Google search, whenever you conduct a, a search, you're going to see SERPs at the top, which are going to be basically they're going to be pieces of text that are pulled out of a piece that fit the query. So if you're like for example, I can give like the ones that comes to mind, top of mind is the drop down questions that you'll often see, where like once you do a search, you're going to see that drop down arrow with explaining, questions related to that topic, and it's going to show a small clip of text. That would be a SERP feature for your content. And if you click through those next time you do a Google search, you're going to see that it's going to list the source of where it's pulling that SERP from. But using ChatGPT to format your content to fit SERPs and fit SERP styling can be helpful to help improve your opportunity to rank in SERPs. And again, at the top of search. So I would say that is just a useful tip as we talk about this. Before you publish a piece of content, especially when it comes to transactional content, you can ask it, what's missing from this content for someone trying to make a decision? This could be like for your comparison guide, for example, or a page explaining your product or your features, etc. Um, this could be something to do just to make sure you're covering the topic fully and thoroughly, and trying to find and see if there's anything you're missing. So really using it as a second pair of eyes to make sure that you're not missing an opportunity for someone to feel that they've gotten enough content to make a decision to purchase, buy, book a demo, whatever the case may be. So I want to give some like concrete examples um, of like what you could put into ChatGPT and what a potential output would be. So I'm gonna just go through these. So as someone is, this is the prompt you would input. As someone is searching for best CRMs for nonprofits, what are you hoping to find? Um, some outputs that could be helpful here when it comes to your content strategy would be uncovering pain points that people are experiencing when it comes to CRMs, understanding expectations of what they're expecting to see when it comes to search, any deal breakers they have. So, what do they need to have special pricing for nonprofits, for example, as it relates to this prompt? But again, can be helpful as you're thinking about your content strategy. What questions might someone still have after reading this article? I mentioned this one in the last slide, but this can help fill content gaps. So you can make sure that you're covering the content deeper. And again, as I mentioned previously, Google is prioritizes content that covers a topic from all angles. So it's important to make sure that we're not having any gaps when it comes to our content and covering it thoroughly. Um, Outline a comparison guide for CRM tools that helps buyers decide based on needs. This can help build out a structure for a comparison guide. Um, you may already have your competitors that you want to evaluate. You can include that in your prompt. Um, Outline a comparison guide for HubSpot, Salesforce, yada yada yada. Um, this can help build the structure, and that fits the intent of the search here. Um, you can use it to rewrite this paragraph for someone comparing tools versus someone ready to buy. This can help optimize for funnel stage and CTA alignment. So, for example, maybe you're creating two different pieces, one for comparing tools, one who's ready to purchase your product. This could be helpful as you're creating multiple pieces of content, because as I mentioned previously, if you're doing intent clustering, maybe you have, your one piece that you're writing for, and you have another piece. So maybe you have a comparison guide that you're writing, but maybe you have another piece of content you're writing for someone who's closer to bottom of funnel looking to buy and looking to, you know, compare your feature, like, or look at your feature set. This can help you create those paragraphs across different pieces of content to speed up your content publishing rate so that you can get more pieces of content out faster. And then format this as a feature comparison table for quick scanning. Again, going back to what we mentioned with UX, if someone's looking to do a comparison guide, or looking to get a comparison guide for a product or services, etc., they are going to want to be able to very easily digest what is the comparison side by side. They're not going to probably want to engage with a long form blog piece that doesn't have any sort of side by side comparison. So again, this is going to improve the overall UX for this piece of content specifically, improves your readability, and fits the format that is the searcher is intending to find when they do that search. So, and these are just some examples of how you can leverage AI. There are hundreds and hundreds of ways you could go about leveraging ChatGPT to help with processes, but this is a good place to start, especially if you are already have a piece of content and you're looking to make sure you cover it deeper, looking to create a table based off of the content, looking to quickly make other clustered other piece of content based off of intent clustering. Um, so yeah, definitely be leveraging this as part of your strategy to speed up the work you're doing, especially if you're a small team. Want to speak also about interactive content. So I like to cover this because I feel like interactive content is often overlooked, but it's really important to your content funnel. So types of interactive content, some examples here would be interactive calculators. Ones that come to mind, top of mind would be like a calculator to calculate a mortgage or to calculate a car payment or something along those lines. It doesn't have to be that, or maybe like the cost of using your product versus not using your product. But a type of interactive tool that someone can use on your website. Maybe it's an evaluation tool or a quiz of sorts that's interactive for someone to submit and get a results page. Or maybe it's an interactive comparison guide where someone can go through, click options to see what they actually need for their business, or what features they need. So um, interactive content is highly commercial and transactional, and uh, people are often, when they're going through and they're like trying to purchase a product or trying to make a decision, there's decision fatigue. They're probably reading about a bunch of pages that, uh, my product's the best, or they can't make a decision between product X or product Y. And these types of interactive pieces of content can help users self-select to make a decision, and it helps their decision-making process. So I want to give an example as it relates to the one I've called out previously, is like which CRM is best for nonprofits. So maybe that's the keyword that you see an opportunity for. And a quiz idea would be find the right CRM in 60 seconds. Maybe you have a quick 5-question quiz for someone to complete, for example. But I often see that this is overlooked as part of content strategy. So think about when it comes to the keywords that you've, maybe found opportunities for, what type of interactive content can you incorporate into that strategy for someone to also too, I mean, if someone's going to use a calculator, use a quiz, they're going to most likely have to submit some sort of contact information, an email, phone number, maybe, whatever the case may be, to complete the results potentially, or to get the results from the calculator or get the results from the quiz. So this can also just help build your overall marketing funnel by, incorporating them into your newsletter, your email marketing, following up with a sales team, whatever the case may be. But definitely try to find opportunities to incorporate interactive content into your overall content strategy. And again, tying this into intent, this type of content, uh, of interactive content, falls into the commercial and transactional intent pool, which is more mid bottom of funnel, which is who we want to try to reach out, who we want to try to be reaching out to and pulling them into the bottom of funnel to ultimately make a decision to interact with our product or service. And then I also want to talk about refreshing old content. So maybe you've come to the call today and like we have a library of content. We've been doing SEO for years. Um, we have all this content, but it's not ranking, for example. So I want to call out like search intent is not static. It changes as trends shift in Google search. Uh, some examples, this is like one that I made up as an example, but maybe you had the 2022 guide, project management tools. Um, and then now what would be trending would be 2025 guide, best PM tools by team size, budget, and use case. So, and this is like just an example of what it could look like, not a true one. But the it's important to make sure that you're keeping your content fresh and up to date, and ultimately trying to match the intent of what people are searching for. So maybe back in 2022, people were just looking for guide to project management tools, but now potentially the trend is a bit more sophisticated. They're looking to actually compare not just project management tools, but they're actually looking to understand team size, budget, and use cases because there's so many PM tools out there now. Um, so again, thinking about any old content you have and how you could refresh it can be helpful, especially if you already have a library of content to match it to what the current intent would be for that type of search. Um, Also can be helpful to look at competitors. If a competitor now has video, incorporate into their piece, tables, whatever the case may be. If you just have a text-only blog, it's not going to be able to rank up next to a competitor. Um, Especially in this example I have here, 2022 versus 2025. It's probably very obvious, but excuse me. Probably very obvious, but if you are doing the search today, you don't want a 2022 guide, you want a 2025 guide. You want the most up-to-date information, prices, comparisons. So making sure that your actual content in the UX match the standards what people are looking for if they were doing a search today. So what to look for when auditing your content to understand if you should be doing this for old content. Some signals to look for are if you have high impressions but low click-through rate. Um, it could mean that the title or meta description are not don't reflect the updated intent. If you have a high bounce rate, we've talked about this many times now, but if you have a high bounce rate on a page, your content isn't matching user expectation. So you want to make sure that you're understanding what is this piece of content showing up for? What is the search it's showing up for? And it's not meeting expectations. So how can I refresh this to better meet the intent that someone is coming to search with? Maybe if your rankings are dropping over time, this is a good signal too that the type of content, maybe you were ranking well for this piece, but it's now dipping. Take a look at the pieces that are ranking now to understand, why are these pieces now taking priority in this search over my piece? Do I need to cover the topic from other angles? Um, do I need to improve the readability of the content? It depends on the content itself to better know what to do. But this is a signal that you should take a look at that piece of content and look at refreshing it. Um, and then obviously just to call out, probably a bit obvious, but the publish date. If you have a piece of content that relates to a 2025 guide or what have you, making sure that you refresh the content to incorporate current standards, like if it's 2025, make it be 2025. Even if you don't include the year in um, like your title for the piece. Maybe if you're doing a comparison guide, it is important to republish your content um, in the coming year to refresh it, make sure the data, the numbers, everything's up to date, and republishing it for the current year 2025. I often see that's overlooked too by brands and companies. They have a comparison guide of products, but it was published in 2023. I'm probably not going to think that content is as relevant as a piece I come across that's a comparison guide that was published this year or last month. Um, so again, thinking about these things and understanding when it's time. And not every piece needs to be republished. If it's an informational piece of content, then it's probably the information is not really going to be changing for the most part, unless it's like, some development in the space. But if you have a comparison guide, that's definitely something that I would be republishing every year to make sure the publish date is up to date with the current year and meeting the standards of what people are looking for. So finally, we're going to just wrap up with some common mistakes that I see when it comes to user intent. Um, so first thing is misjudging intent type. Um, I talked about the four types of different intent at the beginning of our presentation, but making sure you fully understand what someone is searching for with your query. understanding whether this is a transactional search, is this a commercial search, is this informational? Just making sure you have a handle on that, and that you're not just creating content to be creating it, and you understand what is the actual intent of someone coming through and doing that search in Google. Um, Writing before you look at SERPs or other pieces that are ranking for that. Google is one of the best research tools when it comes to content. Before you take the time to write a piece of content or create a piece of content, conduct that search in Google and see what pages are currently ranking. What page, if someone was to do that search that you're trying to rank for, what are those pieces of content? How are they covering the topic? That can help you outline what kind of content you should create and how your content should be formatted. What topics or angles should you take? Um, I mean, use it as part of your research to understand what direction should I take this. Um, Not updating the content. So again, going back to what I said previous on this last slide, I often see that people will have a comparison guide that's from 2 years ago, or they haven't updated the content to fit new. I'm speaking the comparison guide as this example. Maybe they don't have the new updated pricing for a product. Maybe they don't have a new updated feature set in their comparison guide. Whatever the case may be, you need to make sure that you're keeping all of your content up to date and fresh and showing accurate information. Search is constantly changing, and what rankings are and how things rank is constantly changing. So it's important to have a handle on that, and also understanding too, if you have a library of content, not every piece of content needs to be updated, and being able to decipher, hey, this piece of content should be updated, this one's fine as it is, and it doesn't need to be updated or changed. And then finally, neglecting the UX of content, um, making sure that the UX of your page is aligning with the intent of the search, making sure that that visually when someone comes to the content, that they're getting what they expected, they are able to understand the information properly and, excuse me, able to get the information they're wanting to in the form that they're wanting. Again, this is going to help reduce bounce rates. This is going to help improve engagement rates. Um, because if you have high bounce rates or low engagement rates, it's going to hurt your performance for the piece and just your performance in search. Yeah, so that is all I had for today when it comes to search intent. Really appreciate everyone for attending. I'm going to take some time to answer some questions here. If anyone has any additional questions post this, feel free to book a call. Happy to chat through SEO strategy, intent mapping, SEO for your business. But yeah, appreciate everyone coming today.
Awesome. Fantastic. As always, Ryan, we love having you. Thank you so much for presenting. If folks have questions, feel free to drop it into the chat, or you can also unmute and come on camera to ask the questions. But I highly recommend you all booking a call with Ryan and his team. They're fantastic partners of ours, and we're really grateful for the insights they provide us.
Yeah, for sure. I do see a few questions here that I'm gonna try to fit some into these last couple minutes. So and I see that someone's jumping in and answering some of them as well. But so how to check your rankings for search results. So to see your true keyword positioning, you're going to want to invest in SEMrush or Ahrefs. They are paid tools. But again, if this is something that you're prioritizing and SEO and content is what you're prioritizing for your brand, you need to invest in one of those tools. So it's kind of one of those things of when to do it, when not to do it. I'd say if it's not a big priority for your business right now, you can probably hold off on it. But if it's something that you're wanting to prioritize and to improve as part of your marketing strategy, then you need to invest in that. But yes, when it comes to checking your keyword positioning and your true rankings, those tools are the standard. You can also use Google Search Console, which is a free tool, part of the Google product suite, that it won't show your true keyword positioning for different searches, but it will show what pages are ranking. It'll show your impressions, your clicks, so on and so forth, but it's not going to be as in-depth and insightful as a tool, obviously, that's paid versus their free tool. Let me see here. I'm scrolling through. Cool. I think that was all the questions. But if you have any others, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to answer them off this presentation.
Fantastic. Awesome, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us today. Oh, wait, we got a how to deal with Gemini question.
Yeah, so how to deal with Gemini. So when it comes to, so Gemini is the AI component that's been incorporated into Google search. Um, when it comes to Gemini, and spoke about this in presentation, it's important to cover a topic from many angles. That's what I've seen has been the most effective to improve your rankings as it relates to AI. So not only just covering the topic, but in that piece of content that you're writing, covering that piece of content from multiple angles and questions. So, if someone's searching for, oh wait, when we do search Gemini, automatically give the results. Uh, Oh, I see what you're saying. So, very true point. So, when it comes to Gemini, so if anyone's done a Google search, they'll see that at times, depending on the search, there's going to be an AI result at the top. And so people will just get that AI result. And if that's the answer to their question, they may not move further into uh, like further engaging with other pieces of content. I will say that it's kind of the unfortunate state of things with the updates that Google has done. It is, and we probably can all speak from firsthand experience if you've engaged with the new AI component of Google search, that if you're looking for informational content, and it's a quick question that you're looking an answer to, I'm probably going to just look at the AI response and then not engage with the content. However, as a kind of devil's advocate on the other side of this of that, that's not someone that you necessarily want to add to your funnel in the first place. If someone's just looking for a very quick answer to a question and not looking for a more in-depth response to a search, that's someone who's just very quickly fact finding. And truthfully, that's not important traffic to your brand or to your website. However, if someone's doing a search for an informational search and they look at that answer from Gemini and the AI response, and they feel that it's didn't cover the topic thoroughly enough, or they're looking to dive a bit deeper, that's when they're going to go through and look to find pieces of content below that response that they want to engage with, which are the people you want on your site. Those are people who are going to be more engaged overall with your product and overall more engaged with your piece of content. So so that maybe doesn't necessarily answer your question, but it is important to consider that people who are just looking for a quick response to a question, they're going to get that now with Gemini, and they're not going to necessarily engage with your content. But I will say that people who do engage with your content are that much more engaged by clicking through and engaging with your search and your content that's in search results. Um, so yeah, that's my take on it.
Awesome. Fantastic, y'all. Ryan, thank you again so much for being with us.
Yeah,
Expect the recording by the end of the week. And thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day.
yeah. Thanks so much. See y'all.